Let's talk a little bit about Tennessee. Tennessee obviously won their opening game against Bowling Green on a Thursday night to start the season. They played Pittsburgh last Saturday. It was the first of two games that they're billing as the Johnny Majors Classic, because Johnny Majors was the coach at Pitt from 1973 through 1976. He won a national championship with Pittsburgh in 1976 with Tony Dorsett, as their running back. Then he came home to Tennessee, because many of our listeners know that Johnny Majors was a running back for Tennessee in the 50s, and of course led the resurgence of Tennessee into the mid 80s and late. Now, he struggled his first few years, but then turned the program around. So they played this game at Neyland Stadium. Next year, the two teams will meet in Pittsburgh for the second half of that classic. Tennessee is we talked about this a little bit last week. They don't have a lot of talent. They had a lot of guys transfer over the last few years. They had a lot of guys transfer after last year, after they fired Jeremy Pruitt. This new coach is installing kind of I don't want to say run and shoot, but a very fast-paced offense where I believe there's not more than about 10 seconds between plays. They try to move pretty fast, but they're struggling at quarterback. They had their starter in there. He didn't play very well. He's struggling with touch passes. He's got a strong arm, but he doesn't really know how to gear it back. They pulled him saying that he had an injury, which, nobody knows one way or the other. They brought in another quarterback, and I think you and I were watching part of it when Tennessee was down 41-27. They scored to make it 41-34. And then they held a good kickoff. They held Pittsburgh deep in their territory, stopped them on a 3-and-out. Pittsburgh had a bad punt. Tennessee took it over in Pittsburgh territory. And the first play, the quarterback throws an interception, a bad interception, where he never even saw the safety lingering right there in the middle, threw it right to him. And that was pretty much the end of the game. So, they played hard, Tennessee. They didn't make a tremendous amount of mistakes. So I think that's a win for them. But, that was the game, Pittsburgh, that I think they needed to win to have hopes to be maybe 6-6, because obviously, they're with their SEC schedule. There's not a lot of teams there that you could look at and say, hey, Tennessee can win this football game. So I guess the question I want to ask you, really is, from a defensive player's perspective, which, you play defense all your life. And again, a defensive player is never going to say this, but how is it deflating when you're trying to come back, you hold a team to 3-and-out, and on the first play, your offense throws an interception. As you go back in on defense, do you think that deflates the defenders at all, or do you go out there with the same level of intensity?
I think you go out with the same level of intensity, like, you always would, regardless of the circumstances,
Right.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's a little deflating initially. You have that feeling on the side, like, here we go, you
Right.
got to run right back on the field. But when you get out there, if anything, it's almost like you have a little bit of that feeling of like, in other words, the whatever anger, whatever you're feeling about what the offense just did, you can use that as fuel, on defense, and really,
right.
It's like, the game's on us now. Let's take it over. You know what I mean?
Right.
Type of feeling. So I don't think it makes the defense play any worse if that's kind of what you're asking.
Yeah, maybe I asked it wrong. I guess you hit it on the head is what I was looking for. Exactly what you said is that you go out there with that attitude. Okay, it's on us. We've got to do it again.
Yeah, like we almost like, okay, we're not going to get any help here. It's on us. We're going to win the game.
Right.
So it kind of gives you an extra fuel a little bit, but it is deflating initially when the interception or something like that happens initially. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, would you agree with that? I mean, you obviously
I agree.
Played at a much higher level than I did.
No, I agree with that. I think that's a fair assessment, and it's kind of tough on a defense when that happens. But yeah, that's kind of Tennessee's issue this year is, they're going to struggle like that because it's going to take them some time. And I just think that, their fans have to kind of, as much as I hate to say it, you kind of have to live with that. And I think this week they'll get healthy again. They play Tennessee Tech this weekend. That should be a team beat. So they'll be 2-1.
I think we talked about this a little before the Pitt game. didn't you say Pitt's probably their best non-conference opponent, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. Yes.
So I'm looking at their schedule here. Okay, so the 1-1, they're going to beat Tennessee Tech, right?
Right.
They'll be 2-1. And
Right.
then they play at Florida. That'd be a tough game, obviously.
That's a loss, right?
Yeah, at Missouri. I don't know much about Missouri this year.
Could be a win. Okay.
All right. So that's maybe 3 wins there. Then they play South Carolina, which at home.
Could be, but again, could be tough. We'll say it's a loss right now. It's 3-3. They'll probably. I think they could beat either Missouri or South Carolina. So let's call them 3-3 at that point.
All right. Then they have Ole Miss in Knoxville,
and they're going to lose that one.
Okay.
3-4.
Then they're at Alabama, and they'll lose that one.
3-5.
Then they're at Kentucky. They could beat Kentucky, I think.
They could beat Kentucky. They're going to have to play well, but let's call it a win. 4-5.
All right. Then they play Georgia at home. They'll lose that probably.
4-6.
Then they play South Alabama at home. They should win that.
5-6.
And then they got Vanderbilt. So yeah, I think they can still make a bowl.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, they can do 6-6. I think, but as I just said, they're going to have to beat either Missouri or South Carolina, at least one of those.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to beat Kentucky. So if they can do that, I think they could be 6-6. Now they cannot afford to lose 2 of those 3. In other words, if they lose to both Missouri and South Carolina, beat Kentucky, or beat Missouri, lose to South Carolina, Kentucky. So I think right now they're teetering on 6-6, 5-7.
Yeah, I think after they play, of course, Tennessee Tech next week. Then after that, they got Florida, Missouri, South Carolina. If they lose all 3 of those, it's pretty much over.